Hey Matt, how's it going, buddy?
What's going on, Mike? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. It's good to have you on. It's good to see you face to face for the first time.
Yeah,
We've only talked on the phone, but I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit, and hopefully we could talk more about your experience as a college baseball player here on this podcast. So just to let everybody know, sort of what's your background, and talk a little bit about your baseball experience.
yeah. Coming out of high school, senior year, I was going to NYIT. It's a D2 in Old Westbury, Brookville area. Um, got a scholarship there. Um, I want to thank Rojas, Gales, and Calinado for taking me under their wing. But it was unfortunate that COVID was happening during this time. So like 2 weeks before we moved in, um, we got an email saying that like all athletics are closing for like 2 years or something like that. And I was like, man, like what am I gonna do? Because by then everyone had their rosters full for the winter and upcoming spring. So yeah, went to a JUCO in Pennsylvania. Um, After that, I went to FDU, Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey. Got an opportunity there, and then now I'm here at Maritime, so gonna be more happier to have Coach Barbieri, taking me in, seeing with Coach Pat. So yeah, it's been a crazy journey, but everything happens for a reason. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I
where
know.
I
You told me a little bit about that when we talked. I think it is right because we talked. You originally right you committed to NYIT on a scholarship, Division II. Then you go to JUCO. Then you go to Division I in New Jersey. Now you come back to Long Island and you're playing Division III baseball. So you've
yeah,
basically been at all four levels of NCAA baseball.
yep, all for it.
So I guess it's a good segue to talk about, right? So growing up on Long Island, I'm a Long Island guy. I played baseball a long, long time ago in Long Island. I have an affinity for that, right? And you grew up, you played baseball in Long Island. You get a chance to go play in college, and then you sort of go through those different levels. Like, tell me what that was like. I mean, going from high school to college, but then also like playing at the different levels throughout the way. Like, what are the big differences you've experienced?
Yeah, so I think from high school to college is definitely a big jump in your life. A new
Mm-hmm.
chapter where you got more responsibilities on your hand.
Yep.
Um, like starting off from D2, I didn't really get the experience of playing baseball, what the facilities were like, because I was just there in the fall taking classes.
Mm.
So I was really trying to look for where my next step was going to be, college wise. So you know, the JUCO route, it was indoors. Uh, had a gym. We would go like 2, 3 times a week to go hit. Uh, Lifting was like 3 times a week. So it was different because like the kids in JUCO, they're very talented. So like you don't really expect that coming from that. But yeah, and the D1 level, it's you get to play 4 games in the fall, 3 to 4 games I think it is. But it's different for every division. I think with scrimmage wise for college, but yeah, we do play 3 games in the fall. Our lifts are 3 times a week, so time management is definitely something you have to try to control.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, and then now I'm here at Maritime. It's you lift on your own. There's really no set lift times that you can lift. It's just you're on your own with lifting. Practice for the fall, we did 3 times a week. When the season starts, it's I think 6 times a week. Again, like lifts on your own. So like it varies different divisions, with lifts or practice wise. But yeah, I mean, happy to be here. So
Yeah. I mean, basically, like, what you've been through, right? Like, so if I'm thinking about it, tell me if I get this wrong, right? But you grew up in Suffolk County, so you grew up in Eastern Long Island.
yep,
Then you end up you stay in Nassau County, right? Is Westbury, right? Is
Yeah.
NYIT, right?
Yep.
Then you go to Pennsylvania for JUCO. Then you go to New Jersey for FDU. Now you're in the Bronx, right, with SUNY
Yep.
Maritime. So
Yeah.
you've
Correct.
been not only you've been at four different levels of baseball, you've been in four different places,
Yeah.
over
Exactly. Yeah.
over 4 years. There's a lot of change there, right? And being able to handle that, I can't imagine was easy. And clearly you found a place that you're comfortable in because you had a really good season last year, which we'll talk a little bit about, this access, baseball banquet that's coming up in November. I'm sponsoring the award. My company sponsoring the award that you're receiving in terms of college player of the year. Clearly you went out and were able to adjust well enough that you could go out and play and be successful on the field. But like, what were some of the things like, and maybe not just where you're at now, but just in general, like off the field things that really challenged you through the process of bouncing around?
Yeah. That was pretty tough because after NYT closed down, I really it was like 50-50 on if I wanted to come back and play baseball or not. Like it was a great opportunity I had, scholarship wise, and I think just looking for a new spot, like it's not the same culture as I would have had at NYT. So it's all different cultures when you go to different programs and colleges. So, I think trying to fit in or just get used to, the baseball team, the school, the atmosphere,
Mm-hmm.
I think it gets, a little challenging at first, but like I had a couple friends who went to these schools and, different coaches reached out. So it was kind of fitting. Yeah, it definitely wasn't the plan that, wanted to have. Yeah, definitely tough on the mental side, but, like I said before, everything just happens for a reason. So I knew I had to, if I wanted to continue to play baseball. I still do career wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I just had to work hard and, people will find you,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
try
But
to
like
find.
you said, after NYIT, New York Tech, decided to shut down in athletics, right? You said it was like 50-50, right? So like what was ultimately the reason why you decided to stick with it? When it could have been easy to be like, I'm not going to do this.
Because I wanted to stay active. I'm very, I like to be active, lifts, do whatever. If I would just continue on school, I feel like I'd miss baseball. So like during that
Yeah.
time period when I wasn't playing and when COVID was happening and what was going on with NYT,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, I miss baseball. Like I don't think I could ever quit. I've been playing since I was 5. So now I'm a senior now. So I gotta try to work my way up and just continue to grind.
It goes fast,
So,
right? And
yeah,
I can relate to that, man. Like, play as long as you can play, right? Because you just don't know when it's going to end. And if you can do it and you miss it, you know, you don't want to regret not playing. And clearly, you've taken that path, but I think a lot of people do, and they look back and go, "I wish I would have kept going." I want to back up a little bit. So when you were in high school, right, you're going through the recruiting process. So take me through that. I mean, how did it go? Like, what were you looking for then? Did things, I mean, it sounds like you were really happy with your choice for NYIT and it just circumstance sort of took it away from you. But like, as you were going through the recruiting process, like, what were your options?
So it was peak of sophomore year during high school. I was playing for Tri-State Arsenal at the time. There was a New York team and a Jersey team, so
Yep.
I played for both. The Jersey team traveled more than the New York team, like go to Florida, Georgia.
Mhm.
Um, I think once I went to Georgia, I had a great week in Georgia. I was getting looked at by a couple different colleges like Duke, High Point. Um, so I was getting looked at. So I would go to their camp. They would invite me to a camp. These visits, and I just didn't really perform the way I should have performed at these camps. And some of these colleges kind of blew me off. Um, which I understand, but yeah, like some of the Long Island schools blew me off. Um, So Tech was there. Actually, Rojas was my coach for Tri-State, and he was back then the coach at NYIT. So he came to see me play during high school, and then junior year was when I had a great season. Think about it, like 320 or had a couple bombs. So that really like showed out to why I picked NYIT, and it was honestly my only choice too at the time because these different colleges just didn't want me. Yeah, so NYIT was my only choice, and I was happy that I'm grateful for the opportunity and scholarship when I got it.
It's I don't really know. I mean, if I'm being truthful, I don't really understand that recruiting process, the way that you do because you went through it, right? And 30
Yeah,
years ago, that looked very different than what it does now, right? Like
yeah,
we weren't
absolutely.
we weren't we weren't going to Georgia and Florida and to all these tournaments that everybody goes to routinely,
Yeah,
every year. But it's interesting, right? You go down to Georgia, right? It's that the wood bat, right? WWBA, is
yeah,
that the one?
Lake Point. Yeah,
Yeah, everybody goes down there, plays, right? Like there's obviously colleges down there. You could play great for a week and get all these looks, right? Then you go to a camp, maybe you don't play as well as you could or should have, right? Because of whatever reason, right? You just have a bad
mhm,
weekend or,
yeah,
whatever. And it's amazing how quickly like those opportunities come and go, which I think ultimately speaks to the number of baseball players that are out there now that are so competitive, right? There's so many choices, I think, for these schools that, it's a lot of pressure, right? Because if you don't perform at one of these camps or at a tournament, you feel like it's going to take away your opportunity. And like you said, things happen for a reason. And it sounded like NYIT was a great choice. I mean, when you were going through the recruiting process, like when you're going through those camps, like what were you thinking at those points where you're like, wow, these guys are interested in me. Now they're not. Like, how was that? How did you handle that?
I feel like I had a lot of pressure on me. I felt like I had to go out. You know, I felt like I was too tense, and that really didn't justify like what I did on the field. Um, yeah, putting so much pressure on me, like I had to do well. I kind of want a scholarship from these guys, great school, great baseball program.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to ball out. And then when a couple of them didn't reach back out to me or just didn't reach out at all, like I was like, all right, maybe I should change something. Change the way I'm feeling my body. Like keeping everything maybe loose. Just going with the flow. So I didn't really think too much about, oh, these scouts going to see me, these colleges going to see me. Like I kind of just went out there and just played my game, and I tried to block all that out. Like if there was a college coach there, I would be like, all right, like it's me versus the other team, me versus the
Right.
pitcher. It's not like me versus these different college coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just try to block everything out and just play my game.
Do you think like maybe some of the pressure that you felt or some of the things that were going on was that more internal, like putting it on yourself, or you felt like was did you feel like there was pressure from the outside too?
A little bit of both. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say a little bit of both. Internally, like on the mental side, if I struck out, made an error in the field, like I can't sulk. I can't show these coaches like you know bad temper. Like they're not gonna want a kid like that. Which I honestly didn't handle that well up until high school. High school was when I was, mentally I was pretty decent for the most part when it came to
Mm-hmm.
not having a bad day or it was a weekend game and just didn't do good. I try to keep my head high to just give me that positive energy back for the next game.
Yeah. What do you think changed if you got better at that in high school? What do you think it was that changed your mental approach to the game or your outlook? Was there something specific?
uh, my father, he actually during a travel game, uh, it was when I was maybe 13, 14 years old. You could just tell. I think I struck out or grounded out, and he like talked me after the game. He's like, "You gotta change your attitude." He's like, "No one wants to see a kid sulking in the outfield or when you're even at bat, walking back to the dugout." So I was like, he kept telling me that, and I was like, "All right, like something needs to change quick, because if it doesn't, then baseball career is not looking too high for you." So I think sophomore year of high school kind of hit. Um, I started to get up on myself, started to stay positive even if something bad happened.
Mm-hmm.
And, my teammates were always there for me too. Like, "Oh, you want to go hit? You want to talk about it?" Like, so it was definitely rough for the mental side going into high school, especially freshman year, because I got hurt freshman year, fractured my growth plate in my elbow. So yeah, it was definitely tough. But sophomore year really took a turn and got things going.
At what? Well, first of all, let me say this. Like, I think it's clear that you obviously respect your father's opinion and advice, because I think a lot of kids that age probably wouldn't have taken it to heart
Yeah,
as much as you did. And I mean, truthfully, I've had, players, parents come to me much later, like in high school, saying like, my son is a great player, but like he can't control his temper. He can't control his emotions. And this is like a 16, 17-year-old kid, like who's throwing his helmet or bat or whatever after, strikeouts, and it looks really bad. And it's a reflection on the family. I think that could continue on through high school and college, right? But you're right. Like the coach doesn't want that, right? Because you don't want to have to deal with that. And the fact that you were able to make that change is really important. And it's certainly something that, an attitude is something you have complete control of, right? So if you're able to keep that in check and you're able to control yourself, I think that's going to go a long way to getting noticed, because it's not only the performance, but it's also being able to be composed. When you were a freshman, like when, when did you start playing varsity baseball in high school? What year?
sophomore year.
Okay. So what was that like? I mean, because you're 15, maybe 16, you're playing against guys 2 years older. Like what, and you're coming off of an injury. What was it like there, like that sophomore year when you get called up to varsity, right? Presumably a lot of your friends are playing JV like you normally would in 10th grade. You're on varsity, you're coming off an injury. Like what was that like for you?
Yeah, so it was difficult in the fall. Facing kids that were my age, a year or two older. Pitching, I don't know, mid high eights at the
Big,
time.
big, big difference.
Big difference, and these kids are big too. Like I was like scrawny, like it looked like I didn't even fit in. Um, but at the time, uh, EJ Exposito, he was drafted to the Braves, and Logan O'Hoppe, he's on the
Mm-hmm.
Angels now
Yep.
in the bigs. They really helped me out, trying to become like go under their wing a little bit. So they definitely helped me out with that whole process of varsity wise, like the big difference in JV to varsity. So yeah, just different, bigger kids, stronger, faster. So that's when I really knew I had to hit the weights. Run a lot. Eat better. So
Yeah.
that's where it really took a turn and had to really focus on my body more.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because when I was, I was getting ready for this, I just sort of did like a quick search on the internet, right? And like you get, your sophomore year, perfect game picture, and you were like 150 pounds,
Yeah,
right? And now you see a picture in college and you're like 50 pounds heavier, right? Like
yeah,
it's a big difference, right? And the kids who are 15 are throwing 80, and the kids who are 18 are throwing 88, right? Or
yeah,
90. That's a big difference, right? And you've got to be able to see that velocity to get used to it. And that's a tough transition, right? So you have to be mentally tough to be able to accept that failure for a bit until you get more comfortable seeing consistent velocity, right? And a lot of
exactly.
a lot of kids, baseball players in general, right? Whether you're a sophomore playing varsity in high school or a freshman playing against seniors in college, or you're drafted to play professionally, right? Like there's always going to be somebody better and who's more advanced. And so you've got to learn how to weather that storm, especially when you've always been one of the best, which I'm guessing you were, right? Like if you're playing, varsity as a sophomore and you're playing, Tri-State Arsenal for New Jersey, right? I think Mike Trout played Tri-State
Yeah,
Arsenal from New Jersey, right?
yeah.
A good club, right? So like, like you got to be good, but at the same time, you're used to being really good. Now all of a sudden, you're like, oh, like these guys are way
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's got to be motivating, right? It can't like make you down. And it's great that you had those guys. Like I didn't even realize they both went to SJB.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, it's
They
great to have
joined.
that kind of player to play with who can
Yeah,
mentor you through that and support you. That has to be pretty cool.
yeah. Logan was actually a senior at the time when I was a sophomore, and EJ was a junior at the time. So, once Logan went on to get drafted by the Phillies at the time, it was just me and EJ. Hitting off the machine. Seeing that velocity, and seeing live pitching too in the fall really helped too.
Yeah,
Seeing different spin. What's their like. So it was definitely a challenge, but when I was with those guys, they helped me out a lot. So
do you still keep in touch with those guys?
I keep in touch with EJ a little bit. Logan, not so much.
Okay,
So
he's with the Angels now, right?
yeah, he just got transferred to the Angels, traded.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty cool, right? And I think listen, I guess at this point, right? Is this how much more eligibility do you have left?
So I have an extra year left. So I'm probably gonna take that
So
extra
it's two
year.
more years.
Yeah, so I have this year, then next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what's your goal in all this? What do you want to get out of baseball?
Um. So right now I'm kind of 50-50 on what I want to do. If I want to stay here next year or transfer and continue on my career. Um, right now my goal is to play professional baseball. So I've been trying to work hard. Even though I had one good year under my belt, I still have to
Yeah,
be consistent with myself and just continue to keep doing what I did last year and be even better. So right now that's where I pretty much stand. I just had to have the season I did last year or even better. And
yeah.
yeah, people will see me.
What are you working on now to do that?
Uh, Definitely one thing is to lessen my strikeouts a little bit,
Okay.
um, and start getting on base more. That and stealing some bags. I think I only had like 6 bags last year, so it's kind of want to hit the double digits with that.
Were you a base stealer in high school?
I mean, I'm pretty quick, so I would like to, but yeah, during high school I was pretty quick.
Okay.
I had way more bags than I did now, so.
I'm actually interested in this. I'm curious. So like, is is stealing more bases in college? Is that like, do you have like, is that like on the coaches or is that on you or both?
With me, it's on me.
You have a green
Um,
light to go.
I think yeah, you have to build like a trust.
Yeah.
So like you have to be kind of know what's going on in the game, the situation. Like some kids on my team, they have the green light to go, depending like how your steal start time is. What's the pitcher at? Is he 1-1, 1-2? How's the catcher behind the plate? Does he have a good arm? So there's a lot of factors that play into it, but yeah, I do myself have the green light.
Okay. So why do you think that you didn't run as much as you maybe wanted to last year?
Uh, you know, I think I didn't really hit a lot of singles. Uh, to be honest,
It's a good problem to have.
I had not to be the way I am, but I had a good amount of doubles. I had more doubles than I had singles last year. I had more home runs than I had singles last year. So I think it kind of played a factor. And I think just most of the kids that were pitching at the time, they had quick start times to the plate. So it was kind of tough. if I want to go 6 feet off the base, you have to time them. So I think that kind of played a factor in it too. Just trying to steal some more bags, but I think this year I'll be more smart, on the bases and you know try to steal more bags for
Yeah.
sure.
So what kinds of things do you do to work on the other things, right? Like so maybe making more contact and getting on base more. So maybe being a little more selective at the plate. Like how do you work on that can you work on that in the off season, or is that more of an on field on field thing?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. With the getting on base, two strikes, I just try to eliminate my lower half, and it's all hands. Strike zone expands with two strikes. I feel like anything close, you gotta at least foul it off, or it's like a battle between you and the pitcher. So
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to win that battle. Just put the ball in play. These guys on base, you're trying to get the RBI, make them score, for the team. So that's why I'm trying to, lower my strikeouts a little bit and trying to just do what I do. And I've
Yeah.
been working with Marcus. He's one of my hitting coaches. Great guy. He's really telling me the ins and outs of becoming a better hitter. Um, two strikes. We work on that all the time. Two strike approach, and when you're ahead of the count, just backspin. So that's what I'm trying to do this season. And
I think it's really important. It's something I talk to guys a lot about, like having a very attack oriented approach in no strike and one strike accounts, right? Even if it's 1-1, right? Or it's even 0-1, right? You're still in an attack count because you're not going to strike out. But once you get the two strikes, right now the approach needs to change, and being able to do that on a consistent basis is important, right? You don't even want to get into two strike counts, right? Like,
exactly,
right?
yeah,
Like you want to avoid that because your average goes way down, but you also just can't be as aggressive. But when you get there, you're making the adjustments you need to make to put the ball in play. I think I notice a lot of guys now, they get really wide in their base with two strikes. They shorten their
yeah.
stride and really like almost force themselves to like not take any stride, to just kind of stay back and put the ball into play. I mean, is that something that you do, or is there
Yeah,
something else?
so I do definitely try to widen my stance a little bit. Not so much where it's unbearable for me to like turn my head
Right.
swing, but yeah, what I do actually is I take my left foot and take my heel off the ground, and it's kind of like a timing thing, just to make sure I'm on,
Yep.
the rhythm thing too. So with the pitcher, but I only just pick up my back heel, my front heel actually, and just try to time it, and it's just all hands from there.
Yeah. It's baseballs. I mean, it's the best game in the world, but it's damn hard.
Yeah, that is that's for
Yeah, but it just takes a lot of work, right? And you could do all that work in the off season. You can make all those adjustments and feel really good about it. And the minute you go out and start playing in the spring, and if things aren't going the way you don't they're not going the way you want them to, like a lot of guys have to fight the urge to like consistently make mechanical adjustments, right? Like that's something I talk to players a lot about, which is just because things aren't going the way you want them to results wise doesn't mean you should change the approach. I think a lot of guys, especially baseball players, they have to fight the urge to make a mechanical adjustment every time something doesn't go their way. Like that's kind of the mind f of baseball, right? Like,
yeah,
oh, I
exactly.
this isn't working, so I need to change it. But that's maybe not necessarily what needs to change. It might need to be up here. Hey, I got to stay committed to this approach, even though it's not working right now. Because if I stick with it, it's gonna start paying dividends. Versus like, oh no, I got to scrap everything.
100%. And I'm guilty of that too, because if I strike out, I'm like, this is a new two strike approach. I'm like, wow, I gotta change it up. But like I think just being consistent of what your approach is, I
Yeah.
think it'll go a long way.
Yeah. It sounds like you have good coaching too, and that makes a huge difference. Uh,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it sounds like, you got a lot to look forward to this season and beyond that. So I guess to close up, I want to ask you about, and this is like I, I mean, obviously this is something like you're being awarded, right? Like you're receiving the College Player of the Year award from Access Baseball, which is a Long Island, a Long Island media outlet, right? Covers all Long Island baseball. I grew up in Long Island. I was a Long Island baseball kid, played, high school, 4 years in high school. Like, what's it like? What's it feel like to be able to come back, right? To come back to the community and accept that award, knowing all that you've been through and all the things that you had to like endure to get there. Like, what's that going to be like when you go to accept that award?
It's gonna be honoring and grateful. Um, you know, in my opinion, I was the underdog, my whole life, which I love being the underdog because once you shoot up, you're like, well, you're getting all this like fame and like all this hype around you. So it's gonna be great to think about like where I came from first freshman year till where I'm at now. During that whole journey and process of what I've been through. So yeah, definitely, grateful is probably best thing.
It's going to be a
I
lot of
could.
fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be there. I'm excited to watch you get the award. I'm excited to be a part of it. It's kind of like coming home. So I'm looking forward to November 4th. It'll be a lot of fun. So Matt, thank you for joining me on the podcast. It was great to talk to you and get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely, Mike. Thank you for having me.